Hello, human creatures of the new era. Where were we? I was coming back from Brazil. My dad had passed away, and I was being invited to commune with the sacrament of the Mexican desert, Jicuri, Peyote. It was a ceremony led by a member of the Huichol people. The Huichol people are an indigenous tribe that have lived and held their traditions in the central northern part of Mexico for hundreds, probably thousands of years. Nobody really knows. Anyway, I was uncertain, but in the end, I decided to come. It was on the 11th of November of 2011. 11. Normally, these ceremonies are held in front of the fire. This ceremony was indoors, which is unusual, but I didn't know that at the time. It was a small living room with a fireplace. There was an altar in front of the fireplace, and it was a small group of us sitting around this altar. I don't remember what other things were on the altar, but there was a big jug of peyote tea and a big plate of fresh peyote. And after being for a few months in this path that works with ayahuasca, I was already kind of familiar with the process, with the feelings, with the physical sensations, how these things enter and take some time to like really get you in that altered state of consciousness and then integrate or dilute or gradually come back to your normal everyday senses. And I had no idea that this thing was a little bit different. And so we sat there. And what I remember is that I didn't feel anything. Now, something was quite different in these ceremonies than the ceremonies that I was accustomed to. In the ceremonies that I was accustomed to, there are specific moments for one to consecrate the sacrament. So there are specific moments where they call you, you come, you get served, you go back to your place. In this ceremony, after it opened, they said, the sacrament is open. Anybody at any time you want, you can take. There were little cups, and the tea was in the middle, and the plate was there, and it was, serve yourself freely. So the ceremony opened, the first dose was served, and then it was free, and then I didn't feel anything, and some time passed. So I poured myself a little bit more. And I had this beautiful man right in front of me. We were sitting around the altar, and this beautiful man was sitting in front of me. And every time that I served myself, he served himself. And then didn't feel anything. A little bit more time passed. And I ate more, and he ate more. We all were all eating more. And then I drank a little bit more. And I didn't feel anything. And time passed. And like that. And then all of a sudden, I don't know how long, how much time had passed. The ceremony started more or less when the sun was setting. And by the time I realized, the thing just hit all at once. And I was beyond anything imaginable. My sensations, my visions, my perception of myself and of the place and of my body and of everything around and inside and above was so unbelievably strong in a beautiful way. It was very, very different from this other state that I was used to. Primarily, there were many differences, but one thing that I clearly noticed is that my stomach was not an issue. With ayahuasca, up to that point, the stomach was always an issue. There was always a moment or a process or a thing or a theme having to do with feeling better. And this was not happening. My stomach was great and I was feeling great and I was having these visions and then all of a sudden I closed my eyes. So I did say before, I haven't said it this time, but I said it in the past video, that this sacrament, peyote, comes from Huiricuta. Huiricuta was this place that I was going to when my knee got hurt and God told me, well, and then I got pregnant and then God told me, you want to serve me, take care of this baby. So I never got to Huiricuta and now I was having this experience on 11/11/11 with the sacrament of Huiricuta. And all of a sudden, I'm in this force and I just feel the glow, the light, the of the desert start talking to me. And she tells me, you thought that you didn't arrive, but I came to meet you. Remember that he, and she was referring to the father of my daughter, he had come to me before you. He had consecrated with this sacrament. So I was inside him. I was inside him waiting to give this present to you. You did arrive. You thought that you hadn't arrived, but you did arrive. I came to you. I sent you this present. I sent you this answer that you were looking for. So this can be misunderstood, It's like, what is God? Who is God? I was looking for God. I is the desert God. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like ownership person it was more like it came through this one of my arms, like this one of my branches, through this branch of the desert. It was that feeling, I don't remember the exact words, but it was this, it's a conversation that happens through the visions, through the feelings, I really don't remember if there were any specific words, but this was the message that was coming through from the desert of Huiricuta was, I came to you to give you this answer that you were looking for. You thought you hadn't arrived to me, but you did. I arrived to you in this way. And then I was so happy. I was so happy. I had visions of Huiricuta, a place that I had never visited before, but I had these visions of Huiricuta and I saw the soul of the father of my daughter dancing there. And then my father came in and it was all about these gifts from the father and the fire. In that moment, like with all these gifts of the father, I saw myself. I was like this bright orange burning log, when the fire is just like at the peak burning orange that's transforming into white. That was me. I looked at myself and like little flakes of whiteness were just like how would you say that? You know what I mean? When the fire is so bright and then like little white flakes start like just desprendiéndose. I don't know the word in English. Desprendiéndose así de little white flakes, heat, bright, light. All of myself was this fire. And I looked at the fire, the actual physical fire. And I saw myself like I was mirroring this. And I don't know how to, you know, with time, many years later, maybe it's too early to say this, but I've come to understand that God is like a poem. The only way to understand God is like to observe these weavings of existence. And something like that was happening in that moment. This connection between the first experiences I had with that dream of Zoroaster expressing that God is one, and the element on earth where God is like it's present in everywhere, but there's something about the fire, like the fire as the home of this quality, this potent quality. It's as if in that place you have a closer access, something like that. Something about that. And then I found out that I started learning things about the Huichol people. In the conversations that the Huichol that was guiding the ceremony was sharing, he started sharing some things, and he started sharing about their relationship with the fire. They have a very strong relationship with the fire. Their ceremonies always happen around the fire, and fire for them is the grandfather. And I remember he invited us, or the people that were guiding the ceremony were inviting us to talk to the fire. Not verbally, but just sitting at it and looking at it and having this conversation with the fire. And it wasn't difficult. In that state, it was just the most natural thing to do was to have this conversation with the fire. And that was it, really. This ceremony brought me to this completion of a circle with Huiricuta, and feeling that Huiricuta, yes, had given me this. This was, as I said, the end of 2011. After that, really, life just went by. 2012 came, and I continued attending this path frequently. Every time going deeper, every time learning more, integrating. Actually, shortly after this ceremony with Peyote, which was in November, a month later in December, I was getting my uniform and confirming and adopting really this commitment, making this decision of forming a part of this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful path that I was falling in love with. And time went by. 2012. I continued doing what I was doing. I was working in the film industry with this amazing producer with whom I had a really, really beautiful relationship, learning a lot, meeting people, going deeper into this path, being a mom. And then in October 2012, I'm at home and I have this dream. I have a dream that was super, super realistic. You know, those dreams where you can really like sense and feel physically almost. I arrived at the school where I had attended, like the school that I had attended all my life, and my brother as well. And I arrive and I start walking down the stairs from the parking lot down. And as I'm arriving to the playground, he comes from behind and he holds my shoulders from behind, and he puts his face right next to mine like this, his cheek. I can feel his cheek. I can feel his hands holding my shoulders, and I feel his cheek. And he starts telling me with a super like excited voice, hermanita, estamos todos en el mismo lugar, unos de un lado y otros del otro lado, pero es el mismo lugar. And he repeats this, and he repeats this, and he repeats this, which in English means, my little sister, we're all in the same place. Some of us are on the other side, and some of you are on that side, and I'm already on the other side, but it's all the same place. And he repeats, it's all the same place. I'm already on the other side. You're on that side. I'm on this side. Over and over, a few times, very excited, very happy. And then I wake up. And I'm like, oh shit. And then I'm like, no. It was just a dream. He's okay. Nothing happened. If something had happened to him, I would be the first one to know. I would already know, because I'm always the first one to know when something happens to him. Everything is okay. I can't go back to sleep. The day passed, and I'm thinking about this dream. And I don't even call him. I don't contact him, because I'm just trying to, no. It's okay. I'm trying to just put it on the side. He's okay. If something had happened, I would know. And then 24 hours later, a little bit over 24 hours later, I'm driving to school to drop off my daughter, and my phone rings, and it's my mom. Of course, my mom would never call me at that time. And the moment my daughter picks it up, because I'm driving, she tells me it's your mom. The moment she tells me it's my mom, I know what she's gonna tell me. She picks up, she passes me the phone. My mom tells me, Rodrigo se murió. And I tell her, I know, your brother has died. And I tell her, I know. And she's like, you know? What do you mean you know? And I'm like, no. Like, he told me. He told me in a dream that he was already in the other side. And she's like, no, this just happened a few hours ago. So I was in total shock. I drove my daughter to school, and I was in this time, we were living in Mexico City. And this happened in the Yucatan Peninsula. He had a very, very, very strong relationship with the Yucatan Peninsula. He was living there, he was partying with his friends, and he had an overdose and he passed away. Now, the fact that he told me 24 hours, it was almost 24 hours from the time of my dream to the time when he was leaving his body, it was almost 24 hours. And this understanding, not by that time, it was not an understanding, it was just a whoa, orales. His soul knew. His soul knew. His soul was already saying that he was on the other side. It was so strong. So strong. My mom and I organized, we took a flight, we went there, and the whole thing around his death and the process, and there were a few, let's call it blurry. There were a few blurry situations happening around the party and the dose and who gave him this and how his friends reacted and yes, no, right and wrong. There were a lot of people also, especially the police, but somehow there were people that wanted us to take legal action against someone because And between my mother's clarity that my brother made his choices and he was who he was and decided to live the life that he chose to live, and he was who he was. He knew what could happen. He was perfectly aware of what could happen if he continued on that path. This is a conversation that my mom had with him many times. And anyway, more than anything, this dream, this understanding that there was just no one to, of course, there was no one to blame, there's no one to accuse. He made his choices, but it was his time. It was his time. His soul knew. If it wasn't that way, it was going to be any other way, but his soul knew. Right after he passed away, he was cremated. And we decided that we would spread some of his ashes. We would spread his ashes in this Yucatan Peninsula that he loved. We would spread his ashes in the sea of the Yucatan Peninsula. And then we receive a phone call from my cousin who had a dream. And my cousin had the dream that my grandmother wanted us to pour some of his ashes at her grave. And then my older brother and my brother, the brother that had passed away, his girlfriend, and his best friend who lived in Mexico City, they wanted to have like a closure also. So there was this whole division of ashes. And the majority of his ashes were poured in the sea of the Yucatan Peninsula. Then we took some of his ashes and waited for my older brother to come from the United States, and for his girlfriend to come from Europe, and for his best friend to join us from Mexico City. And a little bit of his ashes was taken to my grandmother's grave. And another part of his ashes was taken to the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl in Teotihuacan. Quetzalcoatl is the Aztec representation of this deity here, Kukulkan, which is the serpent deity of the Mayans, and the serpent deity, the plumed serpent of the Aztecs, is Quetzalcoatl. So we went to pour some of his ashes at the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, and every time was part of the grieving, part of the wound, part of the healing. So it's the end of 2012, and my brother had a very profound connection with the Mayans. He was very, very, very interested in Mayan culture. And the Mayan civilization, the Mayan people, were very, I was going to say knowledgeable, but I think really it goes like beyond. They had an understanding of time and the cosmos that is very advanced. I'm going to give you an example, just like to illustrate the thing. The pyramid of Kukulkan is a four-sided structure that has stairs on the side, stairs that go like this, stone. And the stairs at the bottom, the stair goes down like this, taka, 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 and at the bottom there's a big like sculpture of the head of the serpent. Every year at the time of the equinox, May 21st, and a few days before and a few days after, the sun sets, and it's designed in a way that the stairs of one side, as the sun is setting, hit the stairs of the other side and illuminate exactly to show as if the snake of light was landing on Earth. Every equinox, this happens. The actual snake from the sun lands on Earth. Now, we cannot even imagine how they calculated that. How they, like, it was this level of intelligence that they had, and they had a calendar. They had a very advanced calendar, lunar calendar. And this calendar finished in 2012. So there was a huge new age movement thing going on at the time. There was a lot of people talking about 2012 is the end of an era and 2012 is the end of time, and ceremonies and gatherings and books, and a lot of things happened around that time. My brother started talking about this many, many years before. He was literally getting ready for that a long time before it was a mainstream, like mainstream within the new age. Um, long, long before. And it so happened to be that 2012 was indeed the end of his time. It was the end of his time. The precise date was the 21st of December of 2012. 21/12 of 2012. In January 2013, my daughter, who was going to be 18, was getting ready to leave home. She was going to go live in Norway to fulfill her dreams. And during that time, the producer that I worked with told me that she couldn't afford to have me anymore. It was really heartbreaking for both of us, but the way things were flowing, she couldn't afford having me working with her full time. She proposed to me that we worked like on a project base, but I couldn't really. I needed a job. And the man that I was seeing broke up with me. So in the period of, in a very short period, I felt my whole life was shattering and falling apart. My brother died, my job ended, my relationship ended, and my daughter was leaving home. I was broken and undone and had no idea what was coming after. This ayahuasca path is very organized, and it's organized to a level that they call it a religion. I'll talk about it in more detail at some other point. But they call it a religion, and the places where these gatherings happen, they call them the church. In this church, in this ayahuasca church that I attended, there was a group of Huichol people that used to come frequently. And anyway, I was looking for a job. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And then I received a phone call from this same intense friend that by this time I already loved. Remember the one who has two colors, two colored eyes. She calls me and she tells me, you need to meet with this guy. He was someone who also attended these ceremonies, but we weren't close friends or anything. We just like knew each other from this space. But she tells me he's looking for someone. He is working, he has a lot of money, and he's working for someone who has a lot of money. And this person with a lot of money wants to make a foundation about something. And they're looking for someone who will coordinate this foundation. They're looking for someone to spend his money. And I think that person is you. So you go meet him and let's see what happens. So I went to meet him and I ended up working with him. And it was just like that. This guy just had a lot of money and he wanted to put his money into something that was useful for someone. And he wanted to make a foundation, and it was my job to make that happen. And there were a few of us involved. It was this guy with a lot of money, and then my friend who worked with this guy in many other things. One of the things was this foundation that we were going to open. And another friend of mine, these two friends of mine came to this church, and I wanted to find something that all of us, the guy with a lot of money and both of my friends, these people who attended the church, and myself, something that we were all interested in, or something that we all had in common. And it turned out that what we all had in common was the respect and appreciation for the Huichol people. So we started to explore, okay, maybe we make a foundation to help the Huichol people. Then another friend of mine, a childhood friend, tells me, if you want to work with the Huichol people, if you want to have a foundation or do something that has to do with the Huicholes, you must talk to so and so. He is the director of a foundation that has been working for the Huichol people for probably more than a decade by that time. And she gives me his contact, and I call him, and we go have coffee. And he tells me all about his foundation. I came with one of the friends that was involved in this making the foundation, and he tells us about the work that he's doing and that he's been doing with the Huichol people for many, many years. And he tells us the story. So the Huichol people live in the central north, a little bit to the west side of Mexico. And Peyote, Hickory, the desert of Huiricuta, is in the eastern, like more or less at the same latitude, north center, but towards the east. And he explains to us that they live like 400 kilometers away from this sacrament. And every year they make pilgrimages. And these pilgrimages are part of their ritual cycle. And along this pilgrimage, there are many, many, many sacred sites that are part of their cosmogony and of their culture, and they're like super important in who they are. And these places, because they don't belong to them, it's very hard for them to protect. And he starts like describing all the challenges and all the threats and all the da-da-da, and how this pilgrimage and the sacred sites that hold this pilgrimage and this wisdom and these places are in danger. And he and his foundation realized that the best way to protect these territories was nominating or making this pilgrimage be a World Heritage, to bring this up to the UNESCO and have it protected with this backing of UNESCO. So I felt really drawn to this project. And I go to the people that I'm working with in this foundation, and we all feel that this is a good project to collaborate in, and we go for it. In one of my first meetings with this man, he's trying to describe to me the essence of this pilgrimage. A pilgrimage is actually a reenacting of the events of creation. It goes back to the times when the earth as we know it didn't exist. It was yet in the process of formation. When everything was dark, the first beings emerged from the sea. And these beings, they were all like different creatures. There were characters in this story of creation. The deer and the virgin, or the primordial mother and the grandmother, and all these beings came out from the sea and were on a pilgrimage towards Huiricuta and finding their way there. But why were they going to Huiricuta? Because Huiricuta was the place where the sun was going to be born. And as he's saying this, time stopped for me. Every word that he was saying just became like this. I was looking for God. The answer came from Huiricuta. And the name of that child, the way it was given, is Sol, which means sun. And now I'm learning that the whole cosmogony of these people relates to the sun being born in Huiricuta. What